had that sort of midway slip up, but then they came back and won anyway. DeToNator.KOREA, they might have a midway slip up. They haven't technically yet because they're 2-0 up, and they might still be 4-0. But what is the end result going to look like for real?
It's going to be a nail biter. I think it's completely fair to say. DeToNator on the defense first. Of course, for those of you who are unfamiliar, of course, losing team picks the next map, but the winning team gets to pick the starting sides. That is DeToNator.KOREA, as per usual, as could be expected, opting in to defense first here. And running something pretty similar to what we've seen throughout most of the day so far on Horizon Lunar Colony, with the exception of no Roadhog.
Yeah, D.Va is going to give them a little bit more flexibility in terms of movement and positioning. The Roadhog is better to combo with the Orisa specifically here, but at the same time, I think DeToNator.KOREA are also a team that wants to be able to find the right answers to make the right response. And for Machi Esports, they're also very interested in vandalism, especially in that classroom.
I'm liking that they're sticking to the Moira as well. Machi have really preferred this so far with Kiyomi. We've seen very little of his Zenyatta, and he is a very good Zenyatta player. Also, by the way, not a bad Sombra player in his own right. We sort of mentioned that previously, his ability to flex on the DPS, but at any rate, Machi now sort of getting past that initial spam damage, ready in position now.
Quick sort of pullback by DeToNator.KOREA, just respecting Machi's approach here a lot. DeToNator.KOREA just going to hold into the back here, take the time, look for the picks, and there's one already.
Yeah, and that's the thing, if you're not quick enough, then eventually that spam damage is going to find someone. You never know who and you never know when, but you want to minimize the amount of time where that's a risk, and unfortunately, Machi just not quite quick enough and decisive enough. Still kind of pressuring around the side here as Cat. Oh! Didn't translocate away, or maybe didn't have it up. That's a very late death from him, unfortunately.
It is. He did manage to trade a decent amount of ult charge. I was a little bit concerned about where his ult was, which was below 50%, now coming up to about 70%. It's not quite at the EMP just yet, but it does give Machi a little bit of a time bomb to work with here. Once they get that, that's when they got to strike.
Dahim did commit his, oh, that's rough. I was about to say did already commit his Infrasight, so that EMP could be very devastating, but with the death of D-Crown, and Dahim has plenty of tanks to just farm up ultimate against, he could well actually get that in time before Kant has his EMP.
Not only that, but now we've got all the ultimates coming up. DeToNator.KOREA sitting on a Riptide as well. This could end a team fight just on its own if it's placed well enough. And for Machi Esports, a lot of things got to come into consideration, including what to do with this dead player, Rai. Maybe they got to wait for it.
I think they do. Rai tried to move around the side to put some pressure on the point, dislodge DeToNator.KOREA as they pull down to respond to him. He didn't account for getting headshotted by Apache though, and Machi are now just losing a lot of time here just as individuals get picked each and every time they go for a push.
And they could still get picked, like I said. It's going to be, you know, Dahim sniping over there. You got Blitz on the Junkrat as well. The possibility for picks is definitely real. Here comes Riptide.
That's the quick commit though that they've been needing, the EMP from Camp, but no follow up. It's Blitz the first casualty as his Riptide found nothing. This is the start that Machi have been needing, but DeToNator still have deep pockets here. A self-destruct still yet to be committed. Those support ultimates only just out of the picture now. That sound barrier for Restia is the swing point potentially, but it's not enough to save Judo's mech. That is unfortunate, and that could be the leg up that DeToNator need in the fight as Krong catches Kiyomi, and indeed it will be the leg up as now Machi, just shy of a third, are going to get beaten back despite having such a great start in that fight.
Even the one member they did have go down, Apache's going to be brought straight back up. DeToNator.KOREA back in position to get this defense rolling again. Kant already used the EMP, working on the second one. Not that far off though, and he probably should get it in the 1 minute remaining. But Machi, they do only have 1 minute remaining. However, does it look like Hollywood? Can they get this in the overtime?
Oh, the body shot into Kiyomi left him just dangerously low enough for Blitz to finish it off. Once again, we're seeing this position where the pressure from DeToNator, all the tools they have to just pick someone early, are just wasting so much of Machi's time. Now it's Rai, and they're not even letting Machi back up and regroup. I love how DeToNator.KOREA are keeping up the pressure here.
Oh, the adaptation is so good, and now they're going to collapse on top of Machi, who, by the way, have ultimate. They don't have time. How can Machi use all of this? 20 seconds remaining and counting down. They're just continually losing members. Now it definitely will go into the overtime.
Exact same position again now for Judo, where he is demec'd as we approach overtime. Oh, headshot onto Restia. Judo finally gets back into the mech. That was thankfully quick, but all the ultimates from Machi just had to be thrown in. Judo, though, gets Sleepy Bear with the pulse bomb. That is, with the self-destruct, rather, as he was in the air with the Valkyrie. That is crucial. Kiyomi, though, going down means no coalescence, and DeToNator.KOREA is able to weather the storm. They had their own defensive ultimates, the Transcendence out to stop anyone from Machi killing their members. And Machi, just nothing left. No more gas in the tank, and not even a third. We said last time around, last series, turned out Horizon Lunar Colony was the swing point. In this one, it looks like it's going to be the shutout point.
And that's very important for DeToNator.KOREA. They showed, you know, they gave Machi a little bit of space to work with on Hollywood, and Machi definitely took advantage of that. This time around, though, they want to close the door completely on Machi, and they're not going to let them in at all. And towards the end there, got to talk about that adaptation again. In the middle phase, they didn't quite change the way they did. They didn't quite pressure Machi down after getting a single kill. But right in that last sort of second to last fight, to be accurate here, they got a kill, pushed into the room Machi were holding, and they read that Machi was still hiding there and just flushed him out. And they didn't just flush him out kind of in a small way. They got a kill after another kill after another kill into a late DMAG, into Restia getting headshot on the way in. It was just, you know, cascading mistakes, unfortunately, out of Machi, and just huge swing of advantages for DeToNator.KOREA, and all happening at the right time.
And I feel like Machi only actually got 2 fights in that entire time. They had, the first push just got completely shut down, unfortunately, before they even committed to the fight. And they were just about to commit to the fight. They took a bit too long. They had about 5 or so seconds where they could have committed to the fight and chose not to. And it was in that time the D-Crown got picked. They had another one after that, but then from that point right up until the end, it was always just a member getting picked off, then a member getting picked off, a member getting picked off, people getting staggered, and they just never had that opportunity until finally they had it again at an ultimate disadvantage when it was just too late.
That's one of the worst things to experience as a team and players as well. It's kind of like when, you know, you're just continually losing members, and losing one member is not too bad, like, okay, 5-6 seconds, 7 or maybe even 8 depending. You know, they get back in and you're fine, they've reinforced everyone else, but if you lose a member, they respawn, another member goes down, and then they respawn, but another member goes down. It's just this never-ending wait for reinforcements, and never-ending wait and a waste of time for Machi Esports, unfortunately.
Yeah, now they're going to have to waste a lot of DeToNator.KOREA's time. 4 minutes to catch only a third of that point. Very achievable for this squad, but stranger things have happened. That being said, by the way, a draw here does mean that DeToNator.KOREA win the series. It just hurts the map score, and that could actually be good enough for Machi.
We've got to see here what Rai can pull off, because if he has the same sort of pressure and impact that Tahim had when we saw DeToNator.KOREA on the defense, this could still be a very defendable point for Machi to take.
We really do need to see him having that same impact. So far, nothing just yet. And also not a lot of body shots on those tanks to farm up that ultimate, which he will need to counter out the EMP.
So just waiting to see if DeToNator can find their way in here. You've seen Blitz come. Oh, there's one way in.
That's indeed the way in. The dive just from all sides, all at once. All the patience as they set up. Now they catch Rai. I think Machi are just about donezo.
Judo did get something, though. He got a DMAC and a kill. There are some swings around, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. You might be right here.
That is an unfortunate way for it to play out as far as Machi are concerned, because it just seems so cool and casual from DeToNator.KOREA. Not enough spam damage as DeToNator.KOREA was setting up. They had all the health bars, took all the time in the world with minimal threat coming out of Machi. And then when everyone was in position, they just pressed the go button all at once. And it's just too much pressure for Machi. You can't really respond to that without just, you know, getting great kills at flawless moments.
Very similar to what we saw in the ball, by the way, as well, where, you know, you kind of said yourself, just very cool and calm about it. And that's, you know, the same coolness and same calmness that says, here's 45% of a cap, we'll give that to you, it doesn't matter because we'll win with 100% at the end anyway. That's kind of what it looked like again this time around. They're a little bit cleaner because they didn't have to give away too much. They just had to cap that 1/3. They knew they had 4 minutes to play with. And this is also a team that if they had to use the whole 4 minutes, they would have, and they would have still capped. It just feels like it doesn't matter if, you know, you give away a little bit. They're focused on the end goal here. And if you take 4 minutes to cap, that's still a win. But they got it in one attempt, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you got to respect that patience. You can see Machi there feeling the pressure. I mean, the series has been clinched now by DeToNator.KOREA, make no mistake. We talked about, though, getting those extra map wins is going to be really important. So Machi, they really need to not give up here. Look, they've played a lot. They've got that mental conditioning. They've got that mental strength. You guarantee they will still give a competitive performance in their last map, but it needs to be just a little bit more than a competitive performance now. It needs to be a winning performance. Otherwise, this is a 4-0 shutout. DeToNator.KOREA are off to a great start, and Machi would be off to, unfortunately to say, a really poor one.
And as we talk about that as well, fourth map has been revealed. It will be Dorado as the final map in the series on the Escort. And we have to go back to the earlier match today because we were in a very similar scenario with Hong Kong Attitude and Bazaar. And Bazaar came on through with a win. It looked probably even worse than this in many ways. We look at Horizon Lunar Colony, it looked extremely one-sided.
Yeah.
That Bazaar versus Hong Kong Attitude and Mbani might have been even more one-sided for Hong Kong Attitude, and still Bazaar were able to swing on through. So for a team like Machi, who kind of revealed some weakness on Hollywood, maybe that's not accurate, but to say they pushed DeToNator.KOREA on Hollywood, it is very possible that they can take something here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The place where Machi were looking the best on Hollywood as well was on that middle phase, that streets phase. That's very pertinent to what we're about to see on Dorado. Like, it's not an entire map of that, but certainly one's ability to keep momentum while escorting the payload is exactly what makes the difference on Escort. And on the flip side of that, DeToNator.KOREA had a much harder time keeping up momentum. You extrapolate that over the course of 3 whole points, that could be enough to amount to a Machi win here, but it all comes down to the execution.
So far, DeToNator.KOREA using both Nepal and Horizon Lunar Colony as the best examples. On those maps, they just look so, as you already said, but just calm. They just look like they had the whole game under their fingertips. They're kind of masterminding it. Yeah, no rush. You know, you can win the game. You win the game. But when you have the plan underway, everything feels at that point by design. You give away some percentage cap. You give away a little bit of time. It's fine. It's by design. It's planned. It's all part of DeToNator.KOREA's, objective at the end of the day.
I think mastermind is kind of a good way to put it, because there is like this real coolness about it. There's no rush. They know what's going to happen.
They're not worried about losing.
Yeah. Everything's just going to happen all at the right times. It's fine. Almost like a Bond villain, only they don't lose at the end.
Right.
I just imagine
Bond wins in the most ridiculous way.
Like, I've been expecting you, Mr. Bond. And this is already the pressure just mounting. No casualties just yet. Machi nearly actually lost a few members even as they came out the gate, but they have been able to force DeToNator back from that advanced position.
And
as they move towards
DeToNator didn't want to take a risk there. Like,
no,
this is part of their calculated play. They kind of pull back, and now they're kind of back in. They're looking for kind of any members out of position. Rai is super low, just by the way. He could have been the one going down.
And now it's just Machi trying to continue that pressure. They've got the payload sort of up and towards that choke point. This is the point for DeToNator.KOREA to go now. They don't really have the tools that they would ideally want for this. Things like the EMP aren't available. Judo loses his mech, though. That does make it harder for Machi to punch through, as you see D-Crown having to pull back, and it could just be, with the kill on Judo. DeToNator have weathered the storm, may now be able to stall for the EMP to come up.
And now we're sort of seeing the point at where the defense wants it the most. The last time we were here in Dorado on Thursday evening, it was kind of the same story, right? Once this cart gets to the sort of archway section, the defense just hold it right here. The choke is so important.
This is DeToNator having to kind of use this nano boost to try and cycle into the other ultimates they really want to use on the defense, namely the EMP, and it's going to pay off for them. That's, that's exactly what they needed. They're able to pick Restia, able to pick Kant. Blitz is still just a little bit shy of an EMP, though, trying to go in now to poke and farm it up. There's still a window here for Machi, just barely.
It certainly is, and with Rai on the infra site as well, Restia just coming up now, receiving that Valkyrie that is now available. Machi, it's very possible, look, at any point, Rai could get a nice headshot. That could be how Machi get on this point.
And they've also got the infra site for the EMP, which is now not a factor as Blitz goes down to D-Crown on the back side of the fight. Now Machi ready to get aggressive. D-Crown pops the ultimate. The ultimate as well out of Apache on the defense, but Kiyomi can now cycle into his own Transcendence. This should be enough to get Machi past this choke point, but they need to actually convert the kills here. That's what they haven't been able to do so far. Modern's just kind of been disrupting the back line, but that could actually come back to hurt them if they aren't grouped up with this EMP. They need to capitalize off it, and unfortunately they cannot. Is DeToNator able to go to work? No, Modern swings back into the fight now, picks Restia. It's just jostling back and forth. Both teams are so close to losing it, and it looks like with the death of Krong and Modern being too low, having to pull back out of the fight. Also, Blitz going down. It should be Machi punching through, just barely.
You also notice that while everything was happening, most of the camp was just sold down. DeToNator.KOREA made sure that Machi couldn't get anything through. Camp now trying to get those camp moving again. It's forced to back off.
Yeah, that's a really great time for that ultimate there. The boost, whatever it's called. Nano boost.
Of the nano.
Something. I was like, it's something boost, but something boost.
It's a small boost.
What a dumb mind blank for me to have. It's almost like I do this for a living. But it was a great time for it to come up because as much as they won the fight, Machi hadn't actually fully been able to reinforce. And that onto Modern just kind of forced them back. They are not on the payload anymore, as you can see, and this is pressure again.
We're sort of seeing Machi kind of back at square one just a little bit. It's an improvement because they have cart underway. It's around the sort of fountain area, but they just still haven't been able to win the fight cleanly, and that's what they need if they want to cap.
D-Crown down at the start. Killing Apache is not enough of a trade. He could have committed an ultimate there. It's not like he was hacked or anything. Now the res has to come in, and it is at least a good one as they demech Krong. The tank pressure is now not so much of a factor. Judo with that well-placed self-destruct has maybe just swung the pace of this fight now as Rai with clean sightlines and D-Crown able to get aggressive. Holding on to that ultimate now is actually a good call for him. He doesn't need to commit it. He can now commit it later in the fight if DeToNator go in for a recontest or use it beyond this. But off the back of that, even though it's close to overtime, I actually think, yes, indeed, they will. Machi should be able to catch. Can you believe that? That's on 0. That's where that is right now. It's like a pixel from
DeToNator.KOREA want to keep it on 0 if they can because
yeah, they might as well.
Ultimates right now. Nano Boost went into that. Primal Rage just a bit earlier as well, but the cap does indeed finally gone through. This time in a reverse of what we saw in Nepal, it was Machi just barely getting onto the point, but not in time. DeToNator.KOREA, despite throwing all these ultimates, couldn't stop that cut.
And both teams just kind of exhausted themselves on that fight as well. But it's DeToNator.KOREA, yeah. It's all right, you can have a nap after this. Oh, no, wait, you can't. But DeToNator.KOREA do actually come out of it just cycling into a few crucial ultimates that they would have loved to have in that fight. They could have closed it out and thus closed out the series, but having them now is maybe just as good.
Machi looking for that early positioning as the card, excuse me, the card is not moving.
Yeah, well, it is barely, slowly.
It wasn't for a while, and okay, let's move.
It's in traffic. Yeah. Traffic being caused by DeToNator.KOREA driving the wrong way. As they catch Rai as well, going ahead, diving in deep. Daheem as well. The pressure does not relent from these two members here, Modern and Daheem, when they so choose.
DeToNator.KOREA back in control of the high ground, which is going to be very important for them going into this. Denying Rai's sightlines, by the way, is a big part of what this defense needs to be able to achieve, and by taking that high ground, they've done it.
Now, again, the dive straight in onto these backliners, both Restia and Kiyomi. Primal Rage out of Modern, maybe a little bit overzealous, but it looks like they want to turn this into a rout, as the Primal Rage was enough to kill Rai. They catch D-Crown as well. And Machi are just kind of having a non-starter. They actually got some distance on the payload through that, which is pretty nicely done by Cam, but it looks like he's going to get staggered out very late here as a result of it. Little unfortunate.
Good team play as well to collect those kills. The cart, like you sort of mentioned, sneakily, it's in a decent place. This is exactly where you want it to be right now, as much maybe a little bit further even. It's going to open up a couple flanks for them to use if they so choose. But right now, it's all about DeToNator.KOREA. Blitz 1% off the EMP, or 2 rather.
Blitz just trying to get right in. Yeah, able to get that last little bit up. Would have liked to be able to throw in an EMP there, but he knew that he had been red. Would have died if he'd committed it then. Gives Machi the breathing room to get onto the payload.
Speaking of breathing room, though, they are running out of breath. 21 seconds now remaining. DeToNator.KOREA still looking for that EMP point. When they do, could be the doom of Machi.
Self-destruct out from Judo. Able to keep his life as well. Was a little bit close for a second. Apache, though, very early Transcendence. Kiyomi doesn't quite have his, though, and they do close out. Judo and Kiyomi, too. Still holding on to the EMP to close out the fight if they so need. And there it is going to be committed now right at the back end of it, just to make sure they can secure these last few kills. Notably onto Restia and D-Crown. It is actually Apache losing his life. Machi not done just yet, but no, D-Crown down. Res cannot come in. Kiyomi, I don't even think he can speed towards this with a Transcendence. Unfortunately, he cannot, and 79 meters will be the distance. Machi have to somehow hold in advance of if they want to at least pull one map back in this series.
But I think it was quite important for Machi to have snuck that cap on through because it didn't look like they were capable of doing that for a long time. Once DeToNator.KOREA had back in control that B section, they completely nullified the momentum of Machi. Machi still just kind of getting that cap on through underneath the noses of DeToNator.KOREA while they were busy making this dive happen, and the dive was successful. But the cart push, very important now as well, because you sort of mentioned Machi coming into their own defense, got to make this defense happen with the cart distance. That's a lot more achievable where it just is, and specifically where it just is, because right underneath the bridge around that last bend into B is a lot of times where attackers and attacking teams will fail to cap and finish the map. So for Machi, this just became so much more winnable.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes it equally winnable is the fact that they got past the first bridge in the courtyard and were able to just barely muscle their way through there. Because you consider that nearly didn't happen. Well, as it happens, that's something they could now actually do to DeToNator.KOREA, fully hold them somewhere in that early courtyard. It's totally doable.
There's a lot of things that Machi, you know, I think that's the general storyline of Machi in this match so far, is that every point along the way, including Horizon Lunar Colony, I'll even say, despite it being very one-sided, it felt like Machi at multiple points throughout the series this evening has had opportunities to be on top. They've had opportunities to be ahead and to be in winning positions. Now, they've not always won despite being in those winning positions, but they've been there and they've sort of discovered it. Now it's about taking that discovery and actually executing with it, saying, we are ahead, let's win because of it.
Yeah, exactly. And to speak to the other side of that, it would be very unfortunate to sit here at the end of the series, you know, 3-1 or 4-0, whatever it turns out to be, and go, Machi had a lot of opportunities and couldn't quite capitalize on them, because we do have to go back to this notion, and it's one that they themselves expressed. D-Crown was talking about it at the start of the series. They feel a bit disappointed by their most recent performances. I say most recent, this was about 6 months ago now, but still, they feel kind of disappointed by that and wanted to kind of come in hot. They wanted to have shown their improvement, and I do think they have improved since those days. This is already a better looking Machi, and it is one of the tougher opponents you could face in this group, but it's still gonna hurt. It's still gonna sting if you walk away having still not come out with a win despite your improvements in the off-season.
Because that's the thing, right, B? You need to come out with that one map win. That one map win would be so important in especially this group, but also for Machi as a team that is looking to kind of set in motion this rebirth, this comeback of them in 2018, the 2018 season of professional gameplay. But they are, as you sort of mentioned, going up against the best team in the group so far, and that is always going to be a rough start. I don't believe, we're not quite done with this match just yet, but coming out from the end of this, whether Machi take the map or not, this wouldn't necessarily be the worst start, being that we did expect DeToNator.KOREA to come this strong.
And keep in mind as well, even losing to DeToNator.KOREA here, like maybe that just means that when all said and done at the end of the group stages, DeToNator.KOREA finished first and Machi finished second. Like that could be all the series ends up meaning, and that's not too bad, all things considered, for Machi. You would have still liked to have won that match, but you still have a pretty great finish, all things considered. But that becomes a bit conjectural. All we can say right here, right now, is Machi not quite having the performance they were hoping for so far, and now DeToNator.KOREA on the cusp of a 4-0 shutout.
You got to go back to the notion that for Machi, it just doesn't feel impossible. It doesn't feel like Ardiant last season where, winning did feel somewhat impossible. Here, winning does feel very possible. It's within arm's reach, but DeToNator.KOREA are also so far being a team that is very good at keeping you at arm's reach.
Yeah, and Machi have short arms.
not good for a boxer in a flaming ring.
Yeah, you want long arms. You want to. That would be terrifying. Like you're boxing against, like, did you ever read those books, The Mr. Men? And there was the one with really long, stretchy arms. Well, you missed out. Or like, I don't know, Mr. Fantastic then, I suppose. All right. Literally any superhero with stretchy arms.
So, Elastigirl.
Yeah.
Sure, all right, we got there,
Surprisingly unoriginal concept now that I think about it. But let's go ahead and look at actually what's happening in this map. No one's got stretchy arms, they're all the regular length, and it is so far DeToNator. They've pushed up so far, and now they're just making that same thing, that patient set piece. They're setting up for it with Blitz on the backside.
I do want to see at what point is the patience backfiring though? At what point are they too patient? It
Well,
might actually be,
right now.
Might actually be right now because Apache did go down, so it does force DeToNator.KOREA to make a move. It forces them to make a response because something they did not expect to have happened has indeed happened.
And it shows that Machi have learned as well. They're going, hold on, they're not moving the payload, they're not doing anything. They've set up for something. Blitz is somewhere in behind us. This is an opportunity for us to go while they're not actually ready. If we wait until they're ready, they're going to win. And I want to see Machi continue this proactivity.
It's a lot about playing to your own strength, but playing against the strength of your opponent, right? Because so far, as you sort of said, it's Machi's, it's DeToNator's plan, it's their game to win almost.
And as you say that, it is DeToNator charging in and picking Kiyomi. Traded back though, and Blitz on this high ground. No EMP going to come out this time around. Machi weathering the aggression. That payload is past that kind of ideal spot to fully hold at, but about half the time has gone off the clock, and this is where that patience does maybe start to slowly backfire for DeToNator.KOREA. Certainly not as quick and clean as they would like.
And now you need to see the adaptation, right? Because we've seen DeToNator.KOREA when they want to be slow. We've seen a little bit of when they want to be fast. And right now, they may just need to switch gears. We talk about it being an old Ferrari. Now it's time to retune and get into gear again.
Yeah, well, it looks like with a fresh paint job rolling back out the shot, they picked Canton. That actually gives them a big window at this point.
6 ultimates, by the way.
6 ultimates, but all those ultimates don't mean anything if your members are dead because it's D-Crown 2. It is going to be the res to come out, and that may be what swings it. But this tactical buys are not getting enough done. EMP out now as DeToNator trying to use it as a tool to close things out. Indeed, that looks to be the way the fight is going as Machi. The members that are alive, make no mistake, are not affecting this fight. D-Crown only just respawned, really. Going to have to charge back into it regardless, I think, or no, I think smart to not actually barrel into this one, just let the cap go over.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a cap now, not a super comfortable one, that did take a lot of time. As that was kind of mentioned though, D-Crown had an opposite idea. He's thinking, nope, just gonna see what happens right now. I'm gonna guess he doesn't change hero either because it did have the primal rage, but for Machi, slows them down somewhat to get this B set up.
Let's again just always keeping tabs around the side.
Working with Daheem, by the way, so if that does come down, you do expect a kill to happen because 2 of them are roaming together.
Partners in crime here, or at least partners in flank. That's a really aggressive pile in from DeToNator.KOREA. Doesn't actually pay off though. Ken kind of has tabs in it as he drills down Daheem. Didn't quite connect with the pulse bomb, unfortunately. Self-destruct does go wide, and that allows Machi to keep a bit of pressure on here. Blitz has to go ahead and translocate out to stay alive. DeToNator.KOREA just having to back up and lick their wounds, at least for the time being.
There's a few times, though, that DeToNator.KOREA have had to do that, and you have to start wondering when does their momentum really start to take off? And, you know, they're still pushing the cart, though, so it's kind of crazy. They backed off, but when they come back in, Machi just don't stop that cart.
They're always getting a few meters of free cart push, and that means a fight becomes even more disastrous than it might otherwise be if it gets lost by Machi. And with Candigan dying at the top of it, that is maybe the way this one's going to go. They need to start answering back. Judo D-Mac does not get the self-destruct out. I believe he may have been hacked by Blitz there, who, by the way, now has an EMP. Looking to commit that down onto all the members of this Machi squad to try and close it out. Going to even be able to hold on to it, waiting for Machi's re-engage as the payload barrels on towards the end. There it is to counter out the sound barrier. Perfect placement of that. The Transcendence out from Apache, and this DeToNator.KOREA team, at least for this rounding stretch, are looking nigh untouchable and very much unstoppable, not even by Kiyomi's coalescence. And DeToNator.KOREA secure a 4-0 in their Contenders-specific debut.
And that's the kind of debut that they were hoping for. Machi, unfortunately, not the kind of debut that they were looking for this early into the season. But as was previously mentioned, it's not quite over for either team.
Definitely not.
This was definitely more of a result we expected from DeToNator.KOREA. In fact, on some level, you might even be slightly disappointed if DeToNator.KOREA didn't have a dominating start because, again, a team that was reasonably hyped up. So, like delivering on that.
Like, it would, you know, imagine, you know, you hype up a team, you draw parallels to Artie, and then, like, I mean, even a 3-2 victory, right? You'd be like, oh, well, looks like, I mean, they're good, but, like, but that's the thing, is, like, we do also still have to say that in spite of that, look, this still isn't Artie. You even mentioned that there isn't that same intangibility. They are fallible, even though they 4-0'd here. Maybe even some of the other teams in this group, like, maybe it's going to come to pass that despite everything, Machi are the 5th place or even 6th place team here. Like, hell, maybe they're the 6th place team. DeToNator.KOREA are the 5th place team, and the only team they get to beat are Machi. You really don't know with this group. I think that is extremely unlikely, by the way.
Crazy.
But you really don't know with this group. This is still a game that happened in a vacuum, and there are just so many unknowns about this group. That being said, the unknowns are going to start getting reduced very, very soon.
DeToNator.KOREA are going to continue taking maps. What is going to be reduced is everyone else's map wins if DeToNator.KOREA keep going the way they are.
That's, yeah, certainly. And maybe their pride. The other team's pride. Yeah. But hey, DeToNator.KOREA, there we go. For all the hard work they've done in qualifying and now finally able to be here. That's exactly the start they were looking for. This is a team that wants to make that run for playoffs, like we said, maybe follow in Ardian's footsteps. It's got to feel good to collect those first hand
It's been a journey for DeToNator, right? Not just for the Korean squad, but I think for the organization as a whole.
Yes.
First time we saw them was OPC Season 1. They came in 7th place, didn't qualify into Season 2. They've stuck around in Overwatch for a long time now. I mean, despite the poor result in Season 1 and not getting to Season 2 at all, here they are now finally as one of the favorites to win. I mean, this is like a crazy journey just for this team in general.
Exactly. And that's the thing you've got to appreciate beyond everything else, the tenacity of these teams and organizations that have done that. You've got to say the same for Talon. You've even got to say the same for some of these teams that have been in the Pacific scene from the start. You know, like the likes of, well, I was going to say more the likes of Mega, formerly Fireball, and even to an extent Hong Kong Attitude, who didn't have the best results to start with, but have stuck around and have now become some of our top contenders, as we now round out our first season of Contenders. Like, you really have to respect the tenacity of those organizations, and it is really satisfying to see that pay off here for DeToNator.
Yeah, really good start for that organization and that team. Machi, still a few questions left to be answered, but I think
when will they win a map?
maybe next week. You sort of said that. I mean, not going as far as saying, look, maybe DeToNator.KOREA don't beat anyone else, but it's more along the lines of we always expected potentially this result to be the case. We always expected DeToNator.KOREA to be the better team here. For Machi, they are probably still one of the top 4 teams in their group. In fact, I'd expect that they're definitely fighting for a top 4 finish to make playoffs. That's definitely part of their goal. It is the hardest group though, and I'd be very interested to see how they go up against the likes of Talon, who, you know, the other Korean in this group, Korean team in this group, who also look very good so far.
And that's the thing. I do have to say, at least at this point, I do still expect a top 4 finish out of Machi. The thing that is going to throw that into jeopardy is how these other teams perform. You mentioned Talon, and of course there is just so much power and strength in this Group A here. So any one of these teams could be the one that bumps Machi down from 4th into 5th. But Machi could just as easily be a team that bumps one of those teams down from 4th into 5th. And I would lean on the side of that being the case. In fact, I would even potentially lean on the side of Machi still finishing like 2nd or 3rd, not actually having to fight to get that 4th place spot as much as some of these other teams will have to. Yeah,
and it's, you know, we haven't even considered other teams like Chaos Theory in the mix somewhere in there as well. This is their debut in Pacific Contenders, along with a bunch of other teams like Talon, and now they're all kind of stuck in the same sort of group. A lot of things could end up coming to pass here that, like you sort of said, you know, a lot of questions originally that are starting to now kind of unfold itself, a lot of questions being answered. By the end of tonight, we'll have seen every single team
at last
in Pacific Contenders Pacific rather, and that's going to be very important for sort of even internally and externally looking at it and seeing, you know, who do we expect to come out on top, who looks like they're struggling so far. I think that's going to be especially important for the veteran teams here. Reason being, you know, these teams that have come in through trials and played an open division, they've actually played each other. They've got the first-hand experience. And we mentioned this earlier. Watching a team and playing against a team are 2 very different things. Even if you only actually get to watch the team for this first week of Contenders, which is, you know, the case for most of these teams, that still gives you something a bit more relevant and indeed just only a bit more recent than open division and trials and all that stuff. So at the end of today, the cards have all been shown, you know, with a few exceptions of things that teams maybe want to hold on to, you know, come playoffs time. The cards have all been shown. Everything is out there in the open, and it's this race that gets triggered for teams to try and best one another, to identify how each other team is playing.
work to scrim such that you learn to counter those strategies, improve on your own weaknesses, and at the end of today, the firing gun will have been fired. Starting gun, rather. Firing guns always get fired. That's how guns work. Starting guns, there is a very specific reason for firing a starting gun. And it's only to start something, which is what's going to happen after this next match.
Yeah, it is. And I do want to sort of preview into that as well, because coming up next, we are going to be seeing Yoshimoto and Count, the Seoul team from Japan. And there's always one team from Japan in the Pacific region that gets represented, which I'm quite happy about. And then second to that, you have them going up against Xavier Esports, previously known as Xavier Young, coming through Open Division and Contenders Trials, as well as the fourth and final Thai team that we're going to be able to see.
Yeah, and arguably the strongest of the Thai teams as well, with the exception perhaps of Mega. Or indeed, is that the case? This is a very strong-looking team. Like, you don't know.
I put them right neck and neck right now.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. It's going to be hard to call. And as soon as we've seen that as well, we're going to just have a little bit more. Maybe we'll say, okay, Mega look a bit better. Maybe we'll say, okay, Xavier look a little bit better. And that's going to determine how other teams react to them as well. But there's going to be some interesting things in there, because there is that concept of Xavier following in Fireball's footsteps, indeed, with all these Thai teams. And as much as they're kind of following in with the example that Fireball, who are now Mega, did set once upon a time, they also want to differentiate themselves. They want to start their own stories. And you've got to say the same of our one Japanese representative here as well, Yoshimoto and Count. You don't want, new team, same Japan. And that feels really unfortunate to say, but you do have to look back to, funnily enough, DeToNator Gold, Sun Sister, and later on Liberant Supreme, all teams who unfortunately bottomed out of the circuit in their respective seasons. Yoshimoto and Count are desperate to break that mold, and their match here against Xavier Esports is going to be their chance to maybe start doing that.
Yeah, a lot of history, a lot of legacy to live up to here. And unfortunately, some of the legacy isn't so good, and especially for the past Japanese teams that we've seen, it's just been a little bit unfortunate. And this is kind of the season where you'd like, you definitely want to see them breaking through that mold, coming up to that next level. Liberant Supreme walked away with no wins last season. So coming into this, it's not Liberant Supreme. It's a totally different team, and clean slate for everybody. Like we said this on day one for teams like even like Blank come up through with half their roster change. Clean slate. I made that joke already.
Jeez. I was so tired
I went there. I was the first. But yeah, no, seriously, blank slate, because all the successes and all the even failures of the past teams. Now that you come into the new season of Contenders 2018, you've got a new roster, you've got a totally new team. You don't get held accountable for any of that anymore, the good and the bad.
And that's true for all of these teams, even the ones that have gone through minimal changes, all things considered. Even just because it's been 6 whole months since these teams last played each other. There's been patches, there's been meta changes, there's also been those roster swaps. A lot has happened, and yes, clean slate, but on those clean slates now, new stories are being written.